What is up, everybody? You're about to listen to episode number 8. That's right, episode number 8 of the Third Floor Chronicles. This week's guest, Mr. Phil Palisoul. We recorded this May 29th, right before the Sunday show. It was a real good interview. Hope you guys enjoy it. Check it out. All right, Phil, where are you from and how'd you get started in comedy?
I am from Denver, Colorado. I lived there again after a stint in Los Angeles. And I got started there in Denver. I had friends who always told me that I was funny, and I always enjoyed being funny. And there was a comedy club that I knew of downtown, the Comedy Works, which is still there and still in the same spot. And that was a long time ago now.
Was it a standard kind of open mic scene? How was your first year on stage in Denver?
It was, they had, you started with 3 minutes, and then you would come back the next week and hope to do it again and again and again. And then ultimately you would move into a 5 minute and then a 7, then 10, and I advanced through that fairly comfortably because the other comics were really helpful. They'd give you tags or they'd help you, guide you with a little bit of writing or something, and so I developed pretty quick because of that. I always thought that I was planted in good fertilizer, and that's some of the things. It's still that way now.
When you were first doing open mics, let's say your first year or so, how often were you actually getting stage time in Denver?
Well, I wasn't getting, maybe, I was lucky if it was 2 a week, because I still had a day, like most, I still had a day job, and mine was early, mine was 7 to 3:30 day job, so the going out at night and the being up late and all that wasn't good for me. But there were little satellite rooms around where you could do it, and now again the new generation that is in Denver now, they're all very productive, and they run their own rooms now. So you can do comedy in Denver now 5 nights a week, and there's always someplace.
How would you compare your writing process as a young comic compared to maybe how you do it today? Is it similar, or is it completely opposite?
No, the process is the same. I tend to write on stage. I don't know how you do it, Joe, but I tend to write I go up with an idea, and then try to flush it out, because I'm fearfully funny, I think. And what I mean by that is that when I get scared, I think something funny to say.
Kind of put yourself in a corner so you can get
exactly, right, Joe, right. And so I developed that way, but when we moved to Los Angeles, my wife and I started to write television. So then everything was, I'd never sat behind a keyboard before, a typewriter. I didn't pay attention to that. And so then I learned the skill of constructing material, and that helped me write. I still write the same way, but I rewrite and overwrite on.
How did your stand-up help you in the TV writing situation?
Well, it helped me because I was known to be funny, and so I was often able to come up with something funny, whether or not it went in the script. That almost was irrelevant because I didn't write TV before. My wife and I fell into a writing opportunity because her college roommate, who was a stand-up comic, got a development deal, and we started writing on her first show because the project got bad. That's the thing about show business. Any dumb lunk can get in, I mean, it doesn't. You could never go to a courtroom and say, "Look, I watch an awful lot of Law and Order, and I think I should be in here. I object," and they would, you get out, So the styles have helped, and I benefited from being funny first, and then learning how to write television.
While you were writing on television, were you still doing stand-up at the time?
I as much as I could, but I couldn't do it much because they pay you a lot of money and they want you every day. And I would do it when I could. Again, I was back to having a day job, just no different than 7:30. And that one, you have no end hour. You can go in at 10 in the morning and you don't get out until 2 in the morning. And then you go back in at 10 and then you don't get out until 1. And then you go back in at 10 and then you get out at midnight. And so you could never really schedule a show hoping that you'd get out of there because you weren't. Most of the projects that we were on were new shows that didn't finish the full. They made the television schedule but didn't finish the full season. And when that happens, it's often because you don't know what you're writing yet. You haven't learned it yet. And anymore, it's less now. But even then, they didn't give shows. If you weren't pulling a big number, they didn't give shows much of a chance.
When you were writing, did you? You said you kind of fell into it with your wife. Was that something you're like, well, I could definitely do this as a career, or you're like, man, I just want to do this and then get back to comedy?
It was a little of both, actually, and pretty insightful question. Because I was in my bed every night, and I was making I was 5 times the money, 10 times the money, and I'm legitimate. I have an agent, and somebody calls me, and I felt responsible for being funny. I mean, as much as I love stand-up, I didn't have a family. I didn't have to provide for anybody. My wife was taking care of herself to that degree, so it was always a lark, and this was a job. But I missed the immediacy of stand-up. I mean, you got to write. You've got to like thinking of the joke, telling the joke, working on the joke. And it's not the same when you write it and some actor says it and they're more concerned with the picture of the hamburger. It's
like the drapes don't look right. Those aren't the right drapes.
Right. And then it's not as satisfying. But I could do it again.
Were you headlining in Denver, or did that happen when you moved to Los Angeles?
No, I started headlining there. One of the tricks, or it's not tricks, but one of the goals that I would shoot for was to make the schedule at the Comedy Works. The Comedy Works doesn't run like this here, opener, middle, headliner. It's a showcase club where there's a bunch of comics on each night, and all the local comics in town sign up, and then you get sets based on how they build it. And so the big thing for me was to make that schedule, and you would start with an MC spot, and then you would get what they called a B spot, which was a 10-minute spot, and you would get an A spot, which was a 20-minute spot, and then ultimately you either headlined or you didn't. And so each one of those steps were big marks for me, and I was more determined to do it there than anywhere else. And Denver, you don't have, you drive 4 hours from here. I don't know where you're at, but you're nowhere 4 hours from Denver.
Tell us about the opportunity to get on Last Comic Standing. How did that come about? Did your agent approach you? Did you want to get on it? How did that opportunity?
A little bit of both, because I mean, I didn't really want to do a contest game show thing, but when people find out that you're a comedian, the first thing they ask now is, "Hey, have you ever done that last?" And if you say no, they don't think you're legitimate. And so I did it the first time. I did it twice, 2 years back to back. I did it the first time, and the experience wasn't bad, and I felt that I could have done better. So the next year when they approached me, or we approached them, that's part of it that I'm not good at, so I don't take care of. But when it came around again, I was happy to do it again, and again would do it again, and not for the thinking that I'm gonna win, but because I've got a career, I'm already doing it. So not for the hope of that, but just for the challenge again.
Is there anything a viewer of that show would learn? Is there anything that happens behind the scenes or with editing that someone watching at home would never have any idea?
Well, I think like most reality TV, people know when it's not the real part. Now, whether or not the people can distinguish which has been manufactured for the purpose of later or just manufactured later, I don't know. But I do know that the difference between the truth for me and the reality that they showed, those were different.
Was there anything that upset you with the editing, or were you just kind of surprised at, or just kind of caught?
No, not upset, because you signed the papers. I mean, I'm here. I heard the music when I came into the club. I knew it was going to be loud and not but I'm here. And so no, I wasn't upset, but I do think that several times in life, my friend told me one time, and it stuck with me, but several times in my life, God has saved me from the things I thought I wanted. And it could have been the furthering of me on that show, could have been one of those things. I got the credit from it. I got the exposure to the extent that I got, and I just, almost like having a girlfriend break up. You know, like okay, but there's other girls.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it hurt, but there's other girls.
Exactly. It's part of this. It's getting your sandwich card punched.
Right. Yeah.
You also did a premium blend for Comedy Central.
Right.
Explain to the comics, how does that happen? Do you audition to get that? Do they come out to you?
Used to be, back when I got started, you would send a VHS tape. And you had no idea if they were going to watch it. You had no idea when they were going to watch it. You had no idea if they were going to watch 500 of them on one day. You just sent it. But the hardest show to get is your first one, because then that little piece of tape can get sent around and around and around, and Premium Blend came out of another show that I had done, and that came out of a festival that I was in. So it just, this career in particular is not really a ladder, it's a jungle gym. You kind of swing back and forth, and wow, I'm ahead right now, wow, look at that, I'm kind of, but you know, just momentum is what you want.
As long as you're moving, that's
yeah, exactly, just keep momentum.
Where did they film your premium blend at?
It was in New York City, and it was fantastic, it was great.
Are the audience kind of trained for, okay, this is a special, this is for comedy, do they know, like...
Yeah,
okay.
But what people at home don't know is that they do 4 of those in a row.
Of yours?
No,
okay.
They 4 half-hour specials, or 4 premium blends, or 4 whatever it is. They do those in a row, so those people come in, they sit down, they're there for a long while. And you may be, in some circumstances, you may be the 5th comic on the 4th show that they've seen. So you could be, in their head, the 20th guy that they've had to laugh at. And people don't see that at home, and it's hard to, not only hard to create that energy, but it's hard to have a fresh topic, you know. But they do pump, we're coming back, we'll be right, you know, blah, blah, you know, so they do get people involved, but my premium blend was shot, as I said, in New York City, and they had a lot of college kids come in and fill the room for the taping, and they were sharp and, you know, smart and in on the joke and well dressed, and, you know, treated it like it was a thing.
Do you have any sort of creative control of the final product of the premium blend, or do they just kind of film it and then kind of do what they want with the...
Well, they ask you about your content ahead of time. You know, what jokes are you going to do, and submit those, and we like this, can't do, don't say, that kind of thing. And then you do what you do, and you let them do what they do.
How much time did you actually do on stage for the premium blend?
I just did 6 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, but you know, they were good to me. They edited out 2 of the minutes that weren't funny, because I was in New York City and I did a couple of jokes about driving, and they don't drive. They're in the subway, you know, and the jokes, I mean, they're flat, you know. So they were good to me in that way. In that edit, they were like, oh, chop that, chop that, chop that.
You also did the Tonight Show as well. How did you prepare for that?
I did that. I had read some pretty good advice that when you do that show, just know exactly what you're going to say, and just be completely ready to say it. So I prepped all the time. I mean, I wrote every single word down. I didn't want to say the same word twice unless it was necessary. And I had, a friend of mine had given me a gag gift. He does a lot, but he'd given me a gag gift. Was a stand-up microphone, and it had 3 little buttons, and one was clap, and one was laugh and clap, and the other one was like, and I actually sat and did my act into that thing, clapping, so that I would see that this is how it's going to happen.
Because they're not reacting like a stand-up.
No, not at all.
So you got the applause.
Right. And I wanted to get the sense that this is the timing of these new words, because on stage you blabble a little bit, but you need the economy of joke and construction. So these were all new, and I was trying to learn a new habit. And then I have been to the show to see other friends of mine do it, and so I knew my way around a little bit. And on the day before, this was something that was really helpful, and I've done it since when I could, but on the day before I did it, I went in and learned about all my spots, where do I stand, how do I come out, where's my dressing room going to be, so that everything that would be new tomorrow was going to be new today. And I could go in there with nothing new except the show and the...
Just worrying about the jokes, not where you got to eat
now,
at and
having said that, I think I was I was so focused on doing it right that I didn't enjoy doing it as much as I could have, I think.
Was it over just as
Oh
quick
yeah.
as it started?
Yeah. Well, Leno says, he's got a great joke about it, and it's really funny. He says, your first appearance on the Tonight Show is like making love for the first time. It's you don't know what you're doing. It's over way too fast, but you want to do it again right away. And that's exactly how. I mean, it flew by, and it went great, and I wanted to do it again right away.
As a stand-up, would you say that might be your most accomplished thing you've done before?
Well, it is. It is for me because I've wanted to do the Tonight Show since I was a little kid. I've always enjoyed making people laugh, and the construct of the jokes has always been just fascinated me, like music might for somebody or dance might for somebody else. I've just, wow, look at how I did that. So for me, it may not have been the biggest achievement of my comedic career, either money-wise or break-wise or whatever it was, but for identity for me doing it, it was the biggest thing for me.
That's like you said, when people identify you. Have you done Last Comic Standing?
Right.
Have you done The Tonight Show?
Right.
Check.
Yep.
Check.
Yeah. Although, again, I was just watching Letterman the other night, and Jake Johansson was on there for the 40th time, and you just look at it and you go, well, this is why I can't do it, like, because look at this. This is 40 times he's doing it, and he's killing it, and he's killing it, and he's killing it, and as good as they get,
This is probably the most fun question everyone always wants to know. Between Denver and today, tell us your most horrific story that you've had on stage. Whether you bombed, something happened in the audience.
I leapt off a stage and had a fist fight with a heckler. Yeah.
When did it happen?
I was in Ozark, Alabama. I was doing a run for... Every comic knows this, but there are segments of the country that are run by one-night guys that and I was doing a run for a new segment booker that I'd never done it for before, and I was worried and doing all the things, and so I was really stretching with the time, and so I was struggling, and I had to drive the headliner around, which was part of the deal.
At what point in your career was this?
This maybe 3 years in, maybe. So I'm doing it, but I'm really breaking rocks. It's the end of the 2 weeks. I'm driving the headliner around. I'm barely making money. I'm far away from home. This is in the days before cell phones and all that stuff, so I'm disconnected with anything. And I'm on stage, and it's an elevated stage, well elevated, because it's normally for bands where people then dance around on the floor, and people are looking up at you. It's not comfortable for comedy. People get a crooked. So I'm up like 4.5 feet, and the show's not going well. They're not buying me, and I'm eating it, and the DJ booth is. I'm literally. It's no bigger than a phone booth practically, but the DJ booth is right next to the stage, and the door is right behind that. They shouldn't do comedy. That's just all there is to it. They shouldn't do comedy. I was at the end of that run. I was at the end of my rope. I was close to the end of my show. And a guy's been heckling me all night, and I've been trying to do what I could do. And finally he said something about the hair on my wife's back. And I didn't even hear the rest of it, really. I was just had it. And I'm not even like this, but I just had it. And I leapt off the stage, and we got to fighting, and they took us both out, and police came out, and the bouncers talked it around, and I felt really bad because I was the opener. There's still a headliner that's got to go on, and he's got to go on because it's their big comedy night. And
what's up?
What's going on, Jake? Yeah. So that was it. That was it.
Thank you, Phil.
Listen, real pleasure. A real pleasure.
Well, there you have it, folks. Episode number 8 is in the books, as we like to say around here. And if you like what you heard from Phil, be sure to check him out online at philpalisoul.com. He's also got a Twitter account, YouTube account, Facebook, all that fun stuff. Also, be sure to check out his DVD entitled I Wish It Were Longer. Also, check me out, www.joeriga.com. On behalf of the Tampa Improv, thanks for listening to the Third Floor Chronicles, and we will see you next time. Thank you.